Hello there, everybody. Welcome to our latest Ahsoka reaction. This is for episode 3, Time to Fly. Thanks for watching with us. So let's start out, Sanak, with the highlights of this episode. This was a short, very brief, compact episode, and ultimately it focused mostly on Ahsoka and Sabine's relationship. And we kind of talked a lot about that in predictions, but we did have a very, very cool dogfight in this episode. We also had the Hera scene that we had been seeing in the trailers with Mon Mothma. So, talk about some of your highlights first before we dive into some of the deeper character stuff from this episode.
Honestly, I think one of the highlights was actually the episode title, "Time to Fly." It just felt very like episode 9, like, "Oh, they fly now. Oh, yeah, they fly now," right? It kinda felt like that energy. It felt silly already, right? So I already kinda felt primed for something to be just action and fun and like a blitz to the end, and it was. I mean, it started off a little bit more meditative with all the Ahsoka and Hera stuff. Highlight for me there was them still playing this whole uncertainty of like, okay, does she really have it or not? And the way she's proceeding about it is pretty humorous. There's a levity, even though it's like a subject matter of like, is she or is she not force sensitive or able to do something? They've been very particular with their word choice and it's not there. And I thought the way they handled it was well done. What really was funny for me and a massive highlight was what Ahsoka does in the dogfight. Like this was definitely very classically inspired, and New Hope shots were definitely there. Whereas like we seen in the premiere, we saw a little bit more Return of the Jedi with the Rebel fleet and all that. So I just found it very cool to see Ahsoka bring out something more traditionally Ahsoka. I mean, this is the Ahsoka that we know from the Clone Wars that we met when she was like what 14 years old. A lot of quips and stuff like there, and that felt like the ultimate peak. Like, yeah, she's just gonna go outside with like mag boots on, deflect laser blasts, and buy Sabine time. I was like, that's exactly like the ATTE, like climbing on over onto like the rocks and all that, making the assault. It felt like that. This was an episode to remind me of like, hey, this is the Ahsoka that I grew up with. This is the one that was once there, and I think it also plays a pretty pivotal point where she kind of has to give in to like Sabine's silly, dumb ideas, like even something as simple as like preset for the gun rack, right? She's like, why is it gone now? She's like, I don't need it, right? Zoka's been playing defense. She's been playing stoicism. She's been doing all these things. But then when she like goes out and she finally lets Sabine kind of control the dogfight, work in tandem, then you realize what was so exciting and fun about Ahsoka. She would do something absolutely ballsy and just out of the world in the Clone Wars, and it worked because of her attitude or the way she carried herself. And it just felt like that flick was finally switched on for her, whereas everyone else was like having a little bit of fun here and there. And I was like, yes, she's back. That's the Ahsoka I saw back in 2008 for me, right? So that was a big, big highlight. So it felt like a lot of things were lighter, and because it's paced so well, we still feel the impact, but we don't let it linger and be like, well, maybe that could have lasted a little longer, had more gravitas. It's just
Mhm.
it's Clone Wars, and it felt silly like that, and I was very just happy when was going on with that with the whole episode.
Yeah, I completely agree about that. I mean, there was a lot of episode 4 stuff, even the training sequence with the blast shield down, and she literally says the exact same line Luke says, "With the blast shield down, how am I supposed to fight?" The Sabine force sensitivity thing, it's not the worst thing in the world if they're able to explain it away or really, give these hints of these moments. Just the fact being Mandalorian, I kind of hoped she wasn't force sensitive just because they are warrior race people who were able to compete with the Jedi without the Force. Other highlights for me, by far, was the Ahsoka in space during the dogfight. I know some people will probably get on here and berate that scene. Be like, oh, the physics and just stop with that. Like this is Clone Wars Rebels like animation fantasy brought into live action. She's a character that a lot of people have been complaining about, oh, she's too stoic, she's too this, she's too that. It's a justifiable criticism, but we've also not had much story for her. So I was expecting this show to give us that. And the first 2 episodes were very Sabine heavy. I'm glad today's focused on Ahsoka and like you get to see her smile and those types of moments when she's fighting, kind of enjoying it. That type of stuff is very Ahsoka, and I thought we got that. But that dogfight was awesome. I loved it. This episode continues the run of Ahsoka looking fantastic as a show with its VFX. Like Mandalorian had its moments where it would look great and then kind of drop in season 3, and we'd see it in the middle episodes and then it'd go back up for the finale. And this still looks fantastic. This is a sequence that could have easily been kind of phoned in for a shorter episode. And I'm glad we didn't get that. More mystery. I love the Hera versus the New Republic type thing. It's already foreshadowing ultimately the demilitarization type thing, the fear of warmongering and bringing about a second war that the New Republic has carried all the way into the sequels. Absurd optimism that is just drowning this government and ultimately will cause it to fail. I started to get into the Ahsoka Sabine relationship earlier. Let's transition into that again because this was the focus of this episode. This was the main reason for these 32-ish minutes to exist. And I did find the ending kind of abrupt. I thought it ended all right when Sabine and Ahsoka landed. I was kind of like, where are they going to end this? Because it seems like there's another 30 minutes in this episode. And so, in that sense, I don't know about the structure of this episode as a whole. I think, in general, as a package, it was well paced for its short length. When you look at it beat by beat with story elements, it could have and probably should have been longer. So, to kind of touch on some of your favorite little pieces of information that we gleaned out of their relationship there and some of the things that make you look forward to their dynamic here in the future.
I mean, the biggest thing that I think everyone will say is, does she or does she not have force sensitivity? Why are Huyang and Ahsoka being so cryptic about it? And that'll be everyone's first impulse. Sabine from the start has been committed. She's been like, I'm giving you everything that I have. And that does finally unlock Ahsoka to be a little bit more relaxed, sillier, but also just realize you can operate like that. Not everything has to be stoic, not locked in like that. So I appreciated that detail from Sabine. She has a commitment. She has this willingness of working in tandem with people. She's proven to work very well with multiple people in a unit. Telling Ahsoka, I'm gonna give everything I have already kind of primes Ahsoka to be like, okay, I need to like work with her here, right? And I think she realized that when she means like I need to work with her, it's like I need to do that. I don't need to like train her per se. I need to make her connect and make myself connect her. And I thought that was a really nice touch. It's a very subtle thing at the beginning, but I felt like a very nice through line. I'm gonna save what I'm thinking for predictions, so I hope you guys will come when that video comes out. I will say I think this is very much like Filoni threading the line and kind of creating this new concept. I don't think ultimately she is force sensitive. I don't think she could ever be the character that she is without her temperament too. Anything she does is a creative chaos, and with that, more reserved, controlled sort of version of her, I think even if she got the force, I don't think I'd really love the character as much. I like her because she's who she is. She's dealt with her past. Now this is the one thing to provide her a future. So yeah, obviously development will happen. I just don't want it to be like, oh, she becomes like a stoic almost Jedi and she's like Ezra in a way when he has to be very serious and calm. I wouldn't want that. But I think Ahsoka sees that there's something about Sabine that lets her have an effect on the Force without it naturally being a talent for her. And that's kind of where I want to leave it at because I have a very specific example that relates to something else that a lot of people can relate to and understand immediately about where I think Sabine is in the Force. Ahsoka so far right now is just this constant like back and forth with her and Huyang about following the Jedi principles, directives, tactics as opposed to Ahsoka being like, just stay closer, do what I say, all this and that. Hu Yang be like, I remember that mission with you taking those younglings, right? That Ahsoka is what we need here. We don't need your, seriousness, resistance blocking off. And we need you to understand, yeah, the Jedi are no more. The Jedi fell after a millennia, but there are still some good things you, as a survivor, you who's still been committed to the light, can pull and take on your own. And I don't know if that means she becomes a Jedi. I don't really want that for her, but I think she'll become as close as ever. This is something that just feels like you can blink and miss it, but it's actually really well made, paced, and still pretty dense.
Yeah, I agree with that point. Again, to echo, like I thought the package here was stronger than it should have been for the runtime. I think my only problem with the overall structure was the ending and like the way it kind of abruptly halts the middle of a story. And that's fine if the show is great by the end. That doesn't really matter how long the episodes are. And I kind of feel the same way about Sabine's force sensitivity in general. Like at this point, we've all made such a big deal about, oh gosh, is she gonna be force sensitive? How is this going to break literally Dave Filoni's story from Star Wars Rebels, right? Like, I personally, as long as it's a good story, I don't care if she's force sensitive or not. I just don't want it to become a superpower. Like, I don't want her to be this Mandalorian, amazing Mandalorian warrior who all of a sudden discovers, oh wow, I'm 30 years old and I have force sensitivity. Now I can just like conquer the world. I'm so powerful, nobody can beat me. If it's some type of kind of enhancement, almost Leia esque, with like the way she's more able to, in her early days before she's trained by Luke, kind of just feel things that hint into the future, see things before they happen, enhance her battle skills. I mean, it could be just a basic high midichlorian count trait that Mandalorians have, right? Cornhorn's one of my favorite characters in Legends, and he doesn't realize he's force sensitive till he's like 31 or something like that. So it can work, but yeah, I get afraid that it becomes a superpower, but I feel like in other people's hands it would, and Dave Filoni's, I trust him to do what's best for his group of characters in his story. But in general, yeah, again, to echo all of your points about the relationship between the two of them, it's built up very nicely in this. Again, I want more about why they separated in the first place. I think it seems intentionally done to confuse us fans of Rebels, kind of establishing of a rapport, the trust. You have that one shot where you see Ahsoka go from stone faced to a little bit more relaxed, and she tells Sabine, call it, you call the shots, I'll fly. All great stuff for this week's episode, if not, a an epic barn burner of lore, but next week very well could be. So that's going to wrap up our review. Again, tune back in. It will be most likely around 7-ish Pacific, 10 Eastern every single week, depending on the length of the Ahsoka episode. If you haven't liked the video, that really helps us out. Predictions out on Friday for episode 4. We do have a Patreon and YouTube memberships now. If you'd like to show your support for that, we'd greatly appreciate it, but that is completely up to you. Comment below and let us know what you thought if you're watching our replay. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you all next time.